Hey guys, this is Jennifer Seymour with the Shooter's Mindset, here with episode 329 of the Shooter's Mindset. We've got co-host Greg Cannon here tonight. How's it going?
Hey everyone.
And the guest of the hour, who is not a stranger to us at all. He's been on the show multiple times, but it's been a minute. It's been quite a minute, actually. Nils Jonasson, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me on. And Greg, Jennifer, really good to see you guys.
Yep, going to talk a little pistol this week, change it up. We've kind of had a lot of PRS shooters on lately, so kind of switching it up on everybody and doing some pistol.
Got to bring you guys back to your roots.
I know. He's like, when's the last time you shot a USPSA match? I was like, I don't know. It's been a little while. I kind of fell in love with a long rifle, so.
There's a lot to the long rifle game, especially in the PRS world. So I don't have time to do it personally, but I respect the hell out of the guys that can do it well and do it. So
it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I just it's kind of my niche. I fell in love with it. So, but for anybody, so we have picked up quite an audience of precision rifle shooters. So for anybody that's watching the show that is not familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into shooting.
yeah, so my name's Nils Jonasson, and I shoot primarily USPSA and IPSC and IDPA and Steel Challenge and three gun and all of the action shooting sports that involve handguns, rifles, or shotguns. I pretty much compete in. I've been shooting for about 19 years, so I got my start back in 2002, back when I was a youngster, and I kind of gravitated towards USPSA as my focus. So right now I work full time for Canik USA, so that's pretty cool.
That is, you're not too shabby with a pistol in your hand either.
No, I have the opportunity to travel and shoot a lot of matches, and over the years I've won my fair share of national championships and world championships. So I'm super lucky in that regard. And then to be working with Canik to not only bring them into the competitive shooting world, but also show people what they can do in that space is super exciting as well.
It's pretty awesome. I think the next thing we're going to do is a little unboxing that Greg has.
Yeah, so like literally as I was walking in here to do the show, I got a box from Fix It Sticks, and I'm kind of really excited to open it. So I figured I'd do that like on air. More than likely, I'm going to injure myself.
Don't cut yourself open with a knife on live streaming because we'll laugh at you.
I know, and then you're going to have to come fix me.
I won't have to come fix you. You're a grown man. You can drive yourself to the ER.
Oh.
Or just don't slice your hand open.
I didn't slice my hand open. I got my tools.
Very good. What's in there?
All right, so this is called The Works, and it's like a nifty little pouch full of like every tool. Oh, look, it's all in there.
We can't see.
You can't see it.
Why don't you angle your camera down?
You're going to see that I'm like
a
mess here. So we have, it's kind of falling apart, but so we got like individual torque limiters in here. So they're all preset to torques. And you got like all the bits, and you got like a 1911 bushing tool and a Glock sight tool and a pry bar and a choke tool. Let's see what else is in here. Brushes, more bits, scrapers, and then like the coolest Fix It Stick thing, the little T handle. So you're gonna see me doing some cool stuff with this, and I'm super excited about it. This should be fun. If you know me personally, you know that like I love tools and I have a whole bunch of tools, and this is something else cool to add to my bag of tools.
Good times, good times.
Mm-hmm. I'm always a fan of a new toolkit and bags full of neat little things, so I'm all about that.
You know what's more fun than a new tool?
What is more fun than a new tool? Oh, a new action?
A new action.
I see it.
A brand new action. I promise we'll go back to talking about pistols in a minute.
We just get excited when we get things in the mail.
I got my impact action.
That is dope.
Just picked it up today.
And then is that a barrel I see behind you on the counter too?
Yes, there's a barrel back there. And an action right here. And a chassis and a stock in that room in there. So yes, I will be putting it together soon.
Do you want to borrow my fix-it stick? We could properly torque
Maybe.
the
Anyway.
action.
Where
All
do you find the
seriousness.
time to build all these PRS rifles, anyways?
They actually don't take long to build. They're just expensive. They take a long time to build up the money to buy them.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's all. But anyway, I'm super excited about my impact action. Tate does a great job on these, and they are amazing. So excited to try it out. But this show, we're going to talk about pistol stuff. So back to the pistol stuff. You've been shooting the Canic for a few seasons now. What are your thoughts on the quality of the Canic handguns?
So when I first saw the Canic, I was actually working at a gun store many years ago. And the most memorable thing about it was, wow, this very inexpensive gun has an awesome trigger on it. And then I didn't see another one for like 5 years. So I wasn't sure what the quality was going to be like. And they reached out to me and asked to see if I was interested in some kind of partnership with them. And they ended up sending me a couple of guns to see if it's something that was usable for what we did, and even would work for like the USPSA or the competition handgun shooting space. And I was pleasantly surprised to find out that they absolutely did, and a lot better than I expected that they would. And over the last 2 years, I think I've done a pretty good job proving that they can be one of, if not the best production guns in USPSA specifically.
So is that what you're shooting? You're shooting in production division?
Predominantly, yes. I'll shoot production division as well as carry optics in USPSA with the Canic.
No limited?
I shot limited with it last year, but I put myself at a little bit of a disadvantage because it is 9mm, and I'm shooting against the guy shooting 40 caliber guns, scoring major. So it's a little bit of a disadvantage just from a scoring perspective. But I finished fourth or fifth at that match, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I don't think it held you back too bad, Nils.
Not too much.
I mean, I feel really sorry for you.
I know. So do they not make a 40?
They made a 40, but the demand for a 40 caliber polymer frame pistol is next to non-existent. Gotcha. So they stopped importing the 40 caliber a little while back. So we do not currently have a 40 caliber on the U.S. market.
Gotcha. I thought that I might have seen one before. I didn't know that they didn't have it.
They're out there. They do exist, and you could probably get your hands on one if you really wanted one. But yeah, you're probably not going to find a brand new one.
Gotcha. What modifications have you done to your competition ones?
So I haven't done anything that like the average guy couldn't go and spend $150 on and do themselves. I do have a aftermarket guide rod and a little bit lighter recoil spring and lighter striker spring. And then I have a Freedom Smith drop-in trigger face. And those are kind of the core modifications that are done to the pistol, whether I'm shooting carry optics or production division. I have those modifications on these particular guns.
So the Canic really could be a out of the box, pick it up, go shoot it at a USPSA match, and be a pretty solid gun.
Well, and that's kind of the point. We don't want something where, you buy it and then you automatically have to triple the price of the gun to even be competitive. That's not what we want. That's not what we think the carry optics or production divisions should be. So yeah, we want a regular guy or girl to be able to go to the store, pick it up, and shoot it straight out of the box. And then if they choose to do something to it, that's awesome. But the core gun itself needs to be able to perform for the sport shooting that we do. And Canic definitely delivers in that department.
Yeah, I know right around the time I was transitioning out of USPSA into more precision, they were getting really popular, and it was probably close to the most popular entry-level gun. You go out, spend $600 and bring the box to the range and go shoot a match.
Right. Well, and it's funny, the MSRP on it is, I think for the gun I shoot, is like $549 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So they're very cost competitive with a lot of things that are, priced much higher out of it. Like the features that are packed into the SFX, which is the model that I run, are comparable to like an optics cut, like special model Austrian pistol, blah blah blah, whiz bang stuff, where it's like $300 or $400 more, on an MSRP standpoint, and it delivers all the same features and more, and a better trigger to boot.
Yeah, and it's like, you don't think of that optic cut as being like, oh yeah, it just has one cut on it, blah blah blah. But like the cost to just get that done to your out of the box other polymer pistol brings you up to the cost of something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite frankly, it shouldn't add that much cost. There's no reason that a little bit of extra machine work and some optics plates to, modify the gun for, whether it's a Trijicon or a Delta Point Pro from Leopold or a Vortex, it shouldn't cost an extra $200. It's kind of silly, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially if the gun, if you're already machining it. I'd understand if you're, giving your gun to somebody and they're taking the slide off and stripping it down and, setting it up in the machine, but the slide's already in there being machined. So
yeah, Canik is very much customer driven. Like, we want to provide the maximum quality and um, the maximum feature set and value to our customers. And if we can charge less than the competitors, then we're absolutely going to do that. Not because we want to undercut the competitors, but because we feel that the customer, the consumer, deserves a quality pistol or quality product at the best possible price. And that's, in a nutshell, what Canik is all about.
yeah, they've definitely been proving that over the past couple of years. I've been out of it for a while, but yeah, it's definitely a good value.
It definitely is. Have you looked at the new rules that have come out with USPSA? What are your thoughts on those? And for anybody that doesn't know them, let's go through them a little bit, if you remember what they all are. I know.
Yeah, well, I've got a list of the major rule changes. So yeah, there are a couple of kind of innocuous changes that are just minor verbiage changes, kind of clean up the rule book, and then they had some little bit more significant changes as well. And while I don't disagree with all of them or that they should exist, I kind of disagree with the process in which they were applied, or the way that they went about implementing the rules. But that's kind of a different topic. Probably the rule change that maybe benefited the division was the change they made to single stack division. They actually upped the weight limit from, I believe it was 43 ounces to 45 ounces. And the main reason for that, or I can imagine the justification would be, it was hard for a lot of factory 1911 single stack guns to make that 43 ounce weight limit if they were, say, a 9mm, because
That
the
makes
barrels
sense.
because the barrels in a 9mm are thicker, because the hole that the bullet goes through is smaller, so you have more material on the barrel, so that barrel weighs several ounces more than a 40 cal or a 45 barrel. So I believe the argument would be that it's easier for a factory gun to make weight now, and you wouldn't have to find some way to trim weight off. So that's maybe one of the rules that I could see having a little bit of value to it. But there are a couple other ones that are a little bit more invasive in
The holster differences I thought was interesting.
Yeah. So before we move on to that, I just like to talk about how weird it is talking about weights of guns in ounces. It's like, oh yeah, what's yours? 20 pounds? Mine's only 18. Oh, yours is 30. Really?
Well, I mean, USPSA has always tried to, build a rule structure around, competitive equality and making sure that divisions are fair and you're shooting against people with like pistols or like platforms.
Yeah, and it's also like, this versus that. That's a little bit bigger, just all around. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on this whole holster thing going on?
So my knee-jerk reaction is I don't think it's that big a deal. I think it makes it a little bit easier for the ROs to maybe enforce a holster placement or a magazine placement from a rule standpoint, maybe a little bit more easily enforceable. But then it allows the introduction of appendix carry, which I'm not personally completely sold on being a good thing for USPSA from a safety perspective.
So that's 100% my opinion on that also. I understand it is going to draw more people to the sport.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, there's twofold. There's you could argue that yes, then you can practice and you can compete as you would in real life, which helps, practicing for everyday carry. And some people do shoot USPSA not to be as competitive necessarily, but because they want to hone their skills for, everyday carrying. But then there's also the fact of, if you look at any accidents that usually happen on the draw or the reholstering, and reholstering appendix carry makes me really nervous.
Yeah, I was about to say, you don't even have
At a
nothing
match,
sticking out down there.
well, I don't mean necessarily for me. I mean anybody doing it.
Yeah.
At a match, you get in the heat of the moment, and it's hot outside, and I don't know. I don't know.
See, I'm just, thinking back to when I was starting out shooting USPSA, and every time I was reholstering, Mike Nyland just sitting there like, and it's not just me. He does it with everybody. The more experienced range officers just sitting there, watch every inch of you putting that gun back in the holster after verifying it was clear very well. But just watching him, sitting there watching someone try to do this thing, I think he might have a stroke.
What were you going to say, Nils?
It's one of those things where maybe there's a good justification for it, but we don't know what that justification is. And it would have been nice if USPSA, in the process of making such a drastic rule change, at least presented it to the membership before implementing a major rule change like that.
I just think if anybody's going to do it, please, for the love of God, you're reholstering off of the clock. Please take your time.
Well, the only time I've seen somebody shoot themselves is reholstering a gun. So
that's my point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's usually on either the draw or the reholster if something's going to go wrong. So makes me a little nervous, but just be careful.
So yeah, the magazine and holster placement is another thing, and that goes for all divisions. So the divisions that'll affect is production division, carry optics, and single stack. In addition to that, they're allowing magnets as retention devices for magazines in all divisions. So that affects those same divisions: carry optics, production, and single stack.
Credit card.
So those kind of go hand in hand as far as the gear position change for USPSA.
Do you think it's going to be an advantage being able to move it?
No.
That's what I was wondering. I was like, I wonder what I don't know.
So I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to worry I'm not going to worry as much going to the chronograph area where they do the safety inspection, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, all of my gear is, so beyond legal, it's not even worth worrying about. Maybe having a magnet in front of those magazine pouches, if you're going to do a quick magazine stow off of a table, if you're starting with all your magazines off your belt, maybe that could be a benefit. But we're kind of splitting hairs at that point.
It's interesting. It's always funny to me when the new rule book comes out, because I'm not shooting USPSA right now. So my membership's not active. So I'm not like in tune to it, but Facebook blows up.
Sure.
And everybody's like, oh, the new rules.
Yeah, everyone's got an opinion, that's for sure. My biggest opinion is I just wish the USPSA would communicate with the membership before making sweeping changes like this that make huge differences to this many divisions. I mean, it's a big change, and we haven't even gotten to the more important changes, which is going to be the ability to add a weapon light to any gun in any division in USPSA.
Add a little weight to that nose.
So, and yeah, And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I mean, we could probably talk about that for a couple of hours, and neither of us would necessarily be right or wrong. Um, but why?
I do wonder. It was a lot of big changes. I felt like after years of not really having, I didn't feel any really major. I mean, I guess when Carry Optics came out, that was a big change. But other than the new divisions, they're really, maybe I just missed them. But it doesn't seem like there's been. It seems like these rule changes are bigger than the past.
Yeah, these are probably the largest rule changes. So the previous big one before this was the implementation of I think it's a 59-ounce weight limit for production and carry optics, which is a lot for a handgun. Like there are open guns that don't weigh that much.
Yeah, I'm not carrying that every day.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. Sometimes people forget that just because your gun's heavier, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to score better. And what I mean by that is, yes, maybe the gun will feel softer in recoil. Maybe the gun will return faster to that target. But that also means you have to draw that gun out of the holster once a stage. And it also means you have to move that X number of ounces more between each and every single target. And I don't care how strong you are, that is going to slow you down ever so slightly. So I don't see the draw towards, ever heavier guns.
Yeah, that sounds like the time that I was looking for a gun for Steel Challenge and bought the tactical version of the Ruger instead of the light. I was like, yeah, it's not that much heavier, here in Cabela's, and it's $100 cheaper. Definitely slows me down.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah.
And Steel Challenge is a good example. I mean, it's only 5 targets, and the draw is obviously super important. It's a large percentage of each stage. But, I mean, that small amount of weight difference, and that's probably only difference in maybe, 10 or 12 ounces, which is a lot if you think about it. But that amount of weight difference makes it a lot easier to transition between targets.
Yeah.
And really like I said, we could talk about that for hours, and neither of us would necessarily be right or wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a fine line. You can have an ultra lightweight, all plastic gun that weighs nothing, but then you're going to get that recoil. So it's all about the right weight and the right spot for the particular shooter too.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know how it happens. How does USPSA, do you know how they make these decisions? Is it just like
Right?
Sort of, but that's kind of a slippery slope when you go into that kind of discussion. I don't want to have that kind of conversation.
Yeah, we don't have to.
I mean, in theory, it would be presented by DNROI, which would be Troy McManus, or another member of the board, be it one of the area directors, or maybe Jake Martins, I think he's the media director, or whatever his title is now, or Mike Foley, who's the president. It's my understanding that any of those people could present a rule change. What would instigate the need for a change, I think, is a question that I don't have an answer to.
Yeah, I mean, everything evolves, everything changes with time. So, you can't get stuck up on that whole, well, we've done it this way for 50 years. Well, that's great. We were like half revolvers 50 years ago. So I do see the need to evolve, but I also, see the need to involve the membership basis on stuff before it's just like, hey, surprise, look what we did. Right.
And that's my biggest, opinion on this whole thing. And obviously I'm not happy with half of the rules that were changed and don't really care about the other half. But that kind of irks me, just like no one knew about this until, the board meeting, the minutes came out, and magically we have new rules for all these divisions. Oof. That no one that I knew about asked for, no one I knew about it. I didn't know about it.
So a comment from the live: 90% dictatorship and 10% board members. I'm gonna leave off the who said that.
Who was it?
He's one of my friends locally.
Oh, it's on the public thing. Anybody can go look at it.
Yeah, I guess everyone could see. Yeah, you're right. That was Eric Petz.
Okay. Maybe there's some truth to that. I don't know. it's a big job for not a lot of money. So if they're referring to Mike Foley, maybe I could see a point to that. But if you're talking about the board member or the board members, the area directors, area 1 through 8, those guys work their butts off for essentially nothing, just for the love of the sport.
Mhm.
So I don't want to, poke holes in any of them or, belittle anything that they try to do because it's their, time, sweat, and tears put into it. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it would be nice if we knew about this kind of stuff before it was the law of the land.
Yeah.
Is it?
So, I'm going through dealing with some rule changes for. I'm a match director for the NRL 22, so it's like a 22 long rifle precision league. Whole bunch of fun.
I have
And,
a Voodoo Gunworks 22 LR, so no, that's an awesome game.
Come shoot a
No.
match, Nils.
We have one that I've shot once locally.
He has a voodoo and has shot it once.
It's a great gun. I love guns, if you haven't noticed.
I love guns too.
Just a little bit. I love guns. I love new actions.
Mm-hmm. I love guns and I love tools. Tools are cool too. But anyway, in that, we have a match directors group. So everybody who's a match director, gets input, and I'm sitting here talking to my shooters and stuff as we're getting this stuff. A lot of this stuff is very straightforward stuff that everybody wants.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's bought to everybody. They give it to us. We bring it back to some of our shooters and provide feedback versus so it goes out to everybody via their match directors, and then we kind of vote on it in our group, and then we'll have the New Year's yearbook or New Year's rules book released pretty soon with some pretty cool changes.
Well, and that kind of sounds like a good way to do it to me personally. Like have the people that are the most involved in actually running the matches, running the events, and competing in the sport make up the rule set, or at least have a voice in making it. I think that's a good idea, personally.
Yep, and they've pushed out before, like right now they're getting ready to write the rule book for next year, so we're getting every day some sort of a question. But there's been times in the past where like, hey guys, we're thinking of this for next year. Around here it seems like everybody wants it, and then it's just been like bombarded with everybody else being like, yeah, no, and they're like, okay, oh, cool. The membership has spoken.
Well, yeah, and I mean, people have to remember just because it's different and new doesn't mean it's better.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do something just for the sake of doing it. Sometimes the way it is a good way, and sometimes there's a reason it is that way. But if you get in front of more people, yeah, you're going to get some hecklers that make fun of it and tear everything down. But at the same time, you're going to get more smart eyeballs on it, thinking about it critically, and have a legitimate discussion and hopefully either make the suggestion better or decide not to make some kind of drastic rule change for no reason.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that happened. There was a discussion. I guess I could talk about this on here. There's a lot of people in that group. So there's a discussion right now. The standard NRL 22 rules are you get one piece of equipment that's like a bag the size of a volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's just like having that one extra bag or a bag on the front and the back, something like that. It's a huge advantage. And they, started this to make it affordable and easy for people to shoot. But, you think about it, you got like a $3,000 rifle. Is an extra $60 bag going to break you?
Let me guess. They want to add weapon lights.
No. Well, I don't think that there's anything that says you can't. So, I mean, I could go ahead and throw them on, but they wanted to open it up to, remove the equipment restrictions. And I commented, something like, yeah, that's great because like I have like 50 bags and some other people's that I shoot with have a bunch of bags, and literally at the beginning of every match it's like, hey guys, here's my pile of crap, just grab whatever you want. If you don't know what you want to ask, you guys all use my stuff, have fun. And someone came back like, yes, we'll put that in the rules that you have to share. And it's like,
what?
And then it was a hard no on that from everybody. It's like, Yeah, no, that sounds way too like socialist going on there. And in the spirit of the
What's
sport.
wrong, Greg? What's yours is mine.
Yeah, no, that's not how. Well, I mean, so that's the way I want to be, but I don't like people telling me to be that way.
Yeah,
So,
that's the difference.
we had a good discussion. Yes, Prentice, you can use any of my bags whenever you come to shoot one of my NRL 22 matches. Um, so, we decided that the best thing to do is to put in there like it's highly suggested to share gear. And that's just kind of the way the sport is, but it's in there like it's suggested, like just in case someone forgets about it, but not too much rules. People start talking about like, yeah, if NRL 22 forces people to share gear, then
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
and someone breaks something, that'd be kind of an awkward situation.
yeah, it's a slippery slope, and I don't think there'd be any reason to require something like that, especially in the communities that we're all involved in. I mean, I can't think of a more supportive community. And don't get me wrong, there's some assholes here too, but I can't think of a more supportive community than PRS or USPSA or IDPA or Three Gun. Like in all of those worlds, like people bend over backwards and give you the shirt off their back to help you through a match, and that's people that don't even know you.
And after the match, Joe Burdick, I don't know if you know him, he does do some three gun. He had a bad ATV accident at a match in Arena. I think they were at Arena, weren't they?
Yep, it was the ELR or something.
The
Or
ELR
other.
match, but he had a bad ATV accident, like 14 broken ribs,
Oh,
laceration on his scalp, broken arm, airlifted. Anyway, he just posted today that he was getting to go home from the hospital, and he said that the nicest people he's ever met all had a gun, because the gun community, he said he got like bombarded with messages, people that were willing to drive 4 hours to go feed his dog, or drive down to the range and get his trailer and haul it the 8 hours back to his place, just talking about the community in general. And I think that is the same no matter what genre of competitive shooting you shoot, whether it's, I've never done F class, but ELR, PRS, three gun, USPSA, they all are just good people that are willing to. And it's like, I was telling somebody about it. I was like, yeah, we were at this match and the kids were running around. I was like, and everybody watches each other's kids, because we're like a big family. I mean, at shooting matches, everybody's like a family and kind of helps each other out. So I think it's great. The
yeah,
community, I
there's
love
no
it.
question. The shooting community is an awesome group of people, and I'm very fortunate to have grown up around people like that, and hopefully it continues on.
You got any lives, Greg?
Uh, Prentice said a couple of things. He wants to know why you were shaking your head no at him.
Hi, Prentice.
Pet said he's never been part of a group that's been a greater community than shooters. He's one of my buddies. He's part of our shooting community. Hold on. Randy wants to know how many rounds a year do you normally shoot, Nils?
So right now, as few as possible.
Dry fire.
That was one of our questions, is like how, like, you compete so much and it has to take a fair amount of practice. So how have you, continued to shoot over the last really year has been the worst with getting components. And now it's so difficult to get components or ammo. What are you doing to get through it? Are you scaling back how much you shoot?
So eventually, yes, I will scale back how much I shoot. This year, I've got a certain number of goals that are pretty lofty, from a not only a shooting schedule standpoint, but also where I want to, place at these matches. So this year, I don't plan to scale back at all. If anything, I'll probably shoot a little bit more than I normally do.
Did you
I'm
stock up?
also I'm fortunate in that I've seen this happen several times, and it wasn't it happening to this scale obviously was unexpected, but something was bound to happen with everything that was going on and the fact that an election was coming up that could literally have gone either way. It was almost impossible for this not to happen. So I didn't stock up as much as normal people or rational person would want to in a time like this, but I'm fortunate enough to have a little bit in reserve where I don't need to cut back, at least for this year.
That's awesome. I never thought that having like 6 months of components on hand was gonna not be enough.
Yeah. No, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
I'm just
pretty bad right now.
yeah.
And if I had to guess, I would probably say it's going to start lightening up or loosening up shortly, like in the next maybe like 3 to 6 months.
God, I hope so.
But not like we hope to see it. Like I
Mhm.
think stock will come back in on like retail shelves to an extent, and it's already starting to do that a little bit more. I know like Sportsman's Warehouse and Midway and Brownells and all those kind of places get stuff in. It just sells out really quickly.
About
So
3 minutes for primers.
yeah, so it's definitely a competitive market.
Y'all,
But
I bought 1,000 large rifle primers yesterday, and they shipped.
yay,
I literally, when I did that, I got up and I went to my neighbor's office, who's one of the guys I started shooting with, and I just kind of started dancing in the window. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I got primers. I got primers."
yeah. But to answer the original question, my major match schedule for this year, if I just shot major matches, is between 10 and 15,000 rounds. So
A lot of rounds.
that's a lot of rounds. And then I have local matches in addition to that. So I mean, I could probably double that number, and that would cover the local matches, and that's before I shoot a single round in practice. So I shoot, at least right now and this year, I plan to shoot a reasonable amount, but that's just because I've got some specific goals
So, what are
that
those
I.
specific goals?
So I'm going to be shooting several national championships in USPSA this year. I'll likely shoot the IDPA Outdoor Nationals this year, and then if everything goes well, at the end of this year in December, there'll be the IPSC World Championship in Thailand. So I'll be jumping back and forth between divisions a little bit, and my goal is to um, do as well as I can, put myself in a position to win all the national championships and the world championship, but also in between those matches while I'm prepping for it at say regional matches like area championships to perform how I know I can perform leading up to the major national championships as well.
Very
So
cool.
switching from production division to then carry optics to then limited division, like it's going to be not a walk in the park by any means. So it's going to take some work.
With you shooting the different divisions, do you think that red dot optics make you a better iron sight shooter?
I think exposing yourself to different things makes you a better shooter in general. At first, just because I have such an iron sight background, I sucked at shooting red dots, whether I was shooting open division or carry optics. I
Me
was
too.
just super slow. Like I could be accurate. I was just slow as hell.
I want to
Compared to
focus on the front sight. I have a hard time, like, I don't know.
yeah,
This is
it's
the thing.
your mind definitely plays tricks on you.
Mhm.
If you come from the iron sight background in the pistol world and you go to carry optics or open where you're using a red dot, you subconsciously try and shift your focus back and forth from the target to your sight to the target to the sight. And now you have the ability with the red dot to just leave your focus on the target. But subconsciously, and you may not even know or realize you're doing this, subconsciously, what I was doing, and I think a lot of people do it when they switch to red dots, is their focus is coming back to the sight, which is now the optic body surrounding the red dot, which, I mean, you can't focus on the dot because it's focused to infinity. So it's literally a completely wasted amount of time to do that.
You just made me feel so much better about myself. So like I thought I was a special kind of person. So actually, throwback to when I was a professional viewer of the Shooter's Mindset, I won a red dot off of the show. And I was like, well, shoot, now I got to go buy actually that Ruger we were talking about earlier and put the dot on it. And I could not get it. Something was wrong. I was like, this is as bad as my first car accident. My
Right.
first car accident, so I didn't know how to drive an automatic. And I was like, I guess I'm just old school. I can't figure out this stuff. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that was like, it was pulsating in and out and just, it was hard to focus on.
Yeah, and it's hard to realize that you're doing it initially because the what it feels like is you're confirming your sight picture, just like you would with iron sights, right? So you go between targets, and generally I would, snap my focus to the target, and then as I'm transitioning the gun, my focus would come back to the iron sights for as long as I needed to confirm my sight picture as well as it needed to be, fire the shot, and then repeat the process. With the red dot, it's absolutely faster to leave your focus on the targets, right? Not switching in and out. And the red dot allows you to do that, and still maintain accuracy. Because you can do that with iron sights, but you're not guaranteed like that pinpoint accuracy unless you're, some kind of Jedi master.
So what advice would you give to someone that's shot irons and is trying to transition? And I haven't done much with the red dot, but I do know it's difficult because whenever at SHOT Show they have the ones you can go and shoot, and I'm terrible with a dot. Terrible.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh my gosh, give me irons back. So if somebody wanted to switch over to red dot and they'd done irons, like, do you have drills that help train your eyes, or is it just it takes time and keep doing it?
So, so yeah, both. Yes, it takes time to keep doing it. You're not going to be good at anything unless you put in some time and energy into doing that thing. But there are a lot of resources to kind of circumvent the learning process and shortcut everything. Like Steve Anderson does a really good job breaking down some dry fire drills and live fire drills, both for iron sights and optics. Something that I've started doing, and is really interesting to me that I hadn't seen anywhere else, is kind of a mind game that you can play when you're switching to a red dot, just to observe what's going on and force yourself not to like jump between. So say you've got a 50-yard bay, right? Set a target up at 20 to 25 yards, and instead of focusing on the dot, or instead of focusing on the target, focus on the back berm. And then while you're focused on the back berm, set your dot on the target and press the trigger like you normally would, and just see what happens. And that's like an exaggerated example of I can be aiming at this target, and I realize, I'm aware that the dot is on the target. I don't have to be perfectly focused on it. Then when you go back to focusing on the target, you can use your eyeballs to actually pay attention to what the target's doing, what's going on downrange, and then that red dot, just like it was there when you're focused on the back berm, it's just there on the target when you're focused on the target. So that's an interesting thing for people to try, and I'd at least try it. You'd be amazed.
I'll say that makes sense. So I got quite a few lives going on over here. So first, Randy wants to know what red dot will you be using on your carry optics gun this year, and what size dot do you prefer on your carry optic gun?
So the last year and a half, I've been running the Leopold Delta Point Pro, and I'm probably not going to be changing that for this year. I'm experimenting with the Trijicon SRO, but I'm not completely sold on it yet. There are some attributes that I really like about it, and there are some things that I'm not the biggest fan of. So more than likely, I'll stick with the Leopold for this year. And as far as dot size, I'm running the 2.5 MOA dot. And at least with the Leopold, the small dot hasn't been an issue because, like, if it's a fast stage, I can turn up the illumination, and the dot will appear, more defined and easier to pick up. But if it's a really difficult target array or the stage requires it, I can turn that intensity down and I have a finer aiming point, and I feel like I can be more precise. Whether that's real or not, I don't know, but I think it is, so it is to me.
Hey, if it works for you, it works for you. There's a little bit of talk about cross-eye dominance going on over here in the chat. Are you cross-eye dominant by chance?
I'm not. I'm right-eye dominant, right-handed.
Yeah, same here. And I think they're kind of answering their own questions over there.
Well, so what are the questions? What do they got going?
Eric wants to know if anyone's cross-eye dominant and how did they overcome that?
So So if for people that don't know, cross-eye dominant is you're right-handed, but you're left-eye dominant. So the difference in pistol shooting between shooting off your right eye and shooting off your left eye is about 2.5 inches, 3 inches. So by moving your gun a little bit to the left to utilize your left eye instead of your right eye isn't, in my mind, a disadvantage. Like it's something that a lot of people probably just naturally do. I think the bigger problem is when people don't have a predominant eye where they're both pretty much the same and they have a hard time differentiating between which eye they're looking out of. I think that's probably a bigger issue than just being straight cross-eye dominant.
Yeah, it's like one of the guys I started shooting with, it really confused me because, shooting USPSA, he's just shooting like normal.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden we pick up rifles and I'm like, why are you holding that like this?
Yeah.
It's weird. Then I found out that he was left eye dominant and right hand dominant. So he does all sorts of weird stuff.
So I know people that shoot right-handed with the pistol and they shoot their rifle left-handed that are left eye or cross-eye dominant.
Yep, and that's what he ended up doing.
My daughter is left eye dominant, and whenever I mean, she doesn't compete, but in teaching her long guns, I just taught her left-handed because it was so hard for her with that left eye dominance and right-handed. I was like, okay, just learn it this way. It was easier to retrain that hand than that eye. So
right. The only other thing to like mechanically compensate for it that I've seen that's worked for people is use an extra high scope mount on your AR-15 or that kind of rifle, and modify how you position your head behind the scope. I think I've only seen 1 or 2 people ever do that, and it seems to work well for them, but I haven't tried it personally.
it's tough.
Yeah, that's a tough one, especially with the long gun. So yeah, if you can be left-handed too, cheers to that.
So Anthony put a question in here, and I'm going to blame him for this question because it was his. He wants to know, who is the sexier Asian, John McClane or JJ Rakaza?
Clearly, John McClane. So
JJ
I know
might have something to say about that.
So that's okay. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. So JJ's got a lot going for him, but the sheer masculine confidence that you have to wear the pants that John McClane wears all the time is definitely something appealing about that.
That's what I was about to say. If JJ would start wearing the wild pants, it might be a closer tie, huh?
Yeah, it's just a sense of self-confidence that Rakaza just lacks. Sorry, JJ.
Man, he's probably not even watching to defend himself.
Probably not. That's okay. He can take it.
Thanks, slackers. So
I mean,
Anthony...
JJ's got biceps about the size of my waist, so if he wanted to beat me up, he could.
Some of his workout videos he posts, I'm like, dude, how do you do that? It's crazy.
Big muscles.
Yes.
So Anthony put another incomplete sentence on here. I mean, question. He said, Century Arm AKs and matches.
Oh, Anthony. So yeah, I also work for Century Arms because they're the U.S. importer for Canik Arms out of Turkey. So they are obviously huge into the AK world, and yes, they're involved with some of the AK matches around the country. Last year, I competed in I think it was last year, the Red October Championship, which is a AK only match, and that's a ton of fun. And if you want to talk about new shooters that aren't really from the competitive shooting landscape that get into sport shooting, that is actually one place where for whatever reason or another, there are a ton of just people that have AKs laying in the garage that they never get a chance to go out and shoot. Now they can shoot a match and learn a little bit about that. So it's a good time.
It sounds fun. I love stuff that's a little bit different. Especially when I was in USPSA and 3-gun, it was like if I ever found a match that was just odd or just different from the norm, I'd always go and shoot it. Like the Lucas Oil shotgun series getting ready for the world shoot a couple years ago. Like It was cold. I came in like last place, but it was super fun.
Yeah, and a lot of the AK matches, while they have a huge competition aspect to them, there's a lot more like camaraderie and like just hanging out and checking out other people's gear and that sort of thing in the AK world. Where in the USPSA or the IDPA or the three gun world, there's maybe not as much of that anymore.
Yeah, that is true. Because it's just like, it's like if you go to a car show versus like if you go to like a Chevy cruising, it's gonna be a little bit different.
But no, I'm like you, Greg. Like I like match variety, and if there's a cool match that has like their own special flavor of competition, or maybe they've got really really challenging stages, or maybe they've got a ton of moving targets, or maybe the person that designs their stages does like a really intricate whatever. I'll definitely go out of my way to experiment, try it out, and just add to my repertoire, as it were.
What's your favorite match?
My favorite match, ooh, like that I've ever shot or that I shoot on an annual basis.
That you've ever shot.
What's the match that you're like, man, I have to shoot this match every year? Or if there's a one-off match that only came once, that was your favorite?
So, ooh, that's a tough question. The first match that would come to my mind from like the most fun I've had shooting a match would probably be one of the AK Red October Championship matches. And it would have been the first year that I shot it. And as a part of those matches, there's a little bit of a dress up game. So it's not just go and shoot, with your competition rig and go to town. Like people dress up and do goofy stuff and just have fun with it. So I actually went in a full suit. I shot the match in a full suit. Won the match.
That's awesome.
And I just had a heck of a great time. So that's probably the most memorable, just from it being super odd and had a great experience and had a great time. That would be definitely towards the top of that list.
I think the matches that you can have fun with are the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Halloween 3 gun.
I think one of my favorites was a Halloween 3-gun that we had, and so everybody like dressed up, and it was really really funny seeing that like inflatable looking dinosaur shooting 3-gun.
Those are always a lot of fun.
It was awesome.
I think Murder Panda owned it though.
Yeah, Murder Panda would be good. So at Century Arms, we also own Palmetto, or not Palmetto, US Palm. Like, yeah, Palmetto would be great. So we own US Palm, and they manufacture AK magazines and AK furniture and that kind of thing. And we have a banana suit, and it's like a banana magazine is the joke. So we have this full banana costume that I think would be hilarious to shoot an actual match in.
That would be funny.
So maybe that'll be next year.
Dare you to do that. I totally dare you to do that. Be awesome. What other lives are there?
Oh,
So,
Jessica got home and she says hello to everyone.
Hey, Jess. Well,
Jennifer says hi, babe.
Tell her she needs to come sit on the show.
Jennifer says you need to come sit on the show. She's watching TV. She can't even hear me.
She's like, whatever. She's not even watching the show.
She's like, you're still doing that? What's wrong with you?
That is funny. She, for people that don't know, his wife also shoots, and one of her most notable things was she broke her leg in the middle of a stage, and instead of laying there and crying like a little girl, she got on her knees and finished shooting the stage. And then she unloaded and showed clear very safely. And then she said, ow, my leg hurts because I broke it.
Yeah, well, she didn't know she broke it in 3 places at the time.
Yeah.
She thought she sprained her ankle or something.
Yeah. Yeah, there's video of it out there. She was running into a box and and kind of just planted her foot wrong, didn't she? In it.
Yeah, it was kind of a culmination of several things, but at the end of the day, there was a spiral fracture and then 2 hard break fractures, and her fibia and her tibia were both broken. So yeah, that was several months in a cast and plenty of rehab and physical therapy. But now her right leg is stronger than her left leg.
Yep. But I was like, utmost respect always for her because I think a dude would have just stopped. But no, she kept going.
No, she's super awesome, and this year she's shooting also USPSA. She's coming to a couple of the nationals with me, and she's going to focus, I think, on open division this year.
Oh, awesome. I knew she'd been
So
shooting some opens. So,
yeah, she's having fun with that, and she likes reloading less and focusing a little bit more on the stage planning and the movement aspect of USPSA rather than having to reload every 10 or 8 rounds.
yeah, I don't blame her. I don't like reloading. I'd rather run around and shoot.
That's probably the best rule change that they made when they initially did the carry optics division as a preliminary division. It was 10 rounds. So it's basically a production gun with 10 round magazines.
Yep.
And thank God they changed the rule to allow 121.25 millimeter, whatever the legal limited division magazine is, was now the magazine length. And that was the capacity limit for carry optics, which essentially brought it to like 22, 23 round capacity for magazines, which is way better than 10.
So
Much
speaking
better.
of like different matches and not having to reload, I think the last like weird match I shot that wasn't something precision rifle was the Noveske carbine series. Magpul D60. I reloaded like once in that match. It was awesome.
Yeah, that
So
sounds like a good time.
so there's a picture going around on the interwebs today of a guy that had the most unfortunate firearms accident, like short
Uh-oh.
of shooting somebody, I have ever seen. Apparently the gun is a Garrison MC-28. No clue what that is, but it's a striker fired plastic gun, and something blew up inside of it, and he has the striker in his freaking eye.
What?
Yeah,
Ooh.
Yeah, it's all over Facebook.
yeah.
It came out of the back plate of the gun and into his eye. You can see the hole in the back of the back plate. Yeah.
Ugh.
Nils is
Well,
like, oh, I'm gonna have to breathe a little heavy for
oh
a
no,
minute.
I just googled
Gross.
that gun model real quick because I hadn't heard of them before.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's
not a picture that I really want to see.
yeah, and like it blurs out his eyes, but not the part where the thing is going into it.
Yeah, I wonder if that was factory ammunition or if it was reloads or whether it was the gun's
Reloads.
fault
Yeah,
or
there's
something else. You know.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and shout out to the show sponsors, Hunter's HD Gold, because eye protection is important. Just saying, like, I like it because I'm blind as a bat, but I am not as blind as the dude with the striker in his eye. But
Yeah,
like,
Brian Conley does a really good job. He's a super cool guy. I'm pretty sure you know him.
mhm.
And it's fun because he comes out to essentially every USPSA area championship, and he comes out to the national championships, and it's just a lot of fun because he'll do like Facebook lives and stuff like that of stages of the super squads and things like that. So
Yeah, he's just an awesome guy, and it's one of those companies where if you need something, like, if there's some companies, if you're at Walmart, you can't be like, hey, I want this a little bit different. But like, Brian wants to make you a pair of glasses that are going to work for you. So it's like, hey man, like here's my favorite Oakley frames, and here's the admission of how blind I am, and this little thing or that little thing, and he sends them to you, and hey, if they don't work, let us know. We'll, we could do this or that or this. And man, he did a great job the first time, so I don't have to figure out what happens if he did it wrong. But they really do make stuff like for you, not just like an off the shelf buy it type item. You can buy their pre-made glasses with whatever frames, or you can get prescriptions, you can get non-prescriptions, you could get bifocals, or whatever else. So Mike Bell said that pistol was imported by EAA apparently. And Phil said, "Okay, forget about what I said about his eye problems." I think he was the one that was talking about being blind earlier.
Oh, gee.
Is that all the lives?
Jessica said, "Hey girl, hey."
Hey, girl, hey.
Jennifer just read your comment.
She cracks me up.
But yeah, that's pretty much what we got for lives.
So, what do you think is more of a factor in performance, the arrow or the Indian?
Ooh.
Do you think a gun can, like, oh, that gun is going to bring you up?
No. So I think the gun plays an important role in that it has to function every single time, and it has to hit the target when you do everything correctly. And then after it does those two things perfectly, then if it makes it easier for you to accomplish that, that's even better. And then if you like the gun, that's like a perfect world. So, but functionality, absolutely number one. Accuracy, so when you do what you're supposed to do, it actually hits where it's supposed to go. That's number two. And then the ease and the comfort of shooting the gun and the gun helping you achieve your goal would be number three. If it can do those three things well, realistically, put some rounds downrange and spend time with whatever you choose to shoot.
I've often said in PRS, just because that's what I'm doing, that I wish that we would have a match with some of the top shooters, all shooting RPRs, like stock RPRs and factory ammo.
So
And
forgive
put them all out there.
my ignorance. What's an RPR?
A Ruger precision rifle. So it's not a custom,
Right.
and that's nothing against Ruger, but it's not a custom action with a, it's an out of the box gun. It would be like picking up a stock Glock or a stock something. So
Canic.
No,
so
Glock.
yeah,
Glock.
or a stock Canic. So
No,
I
more
think
like
it would
Glock.
be cool to have a pistol match where it was factory ammo, everybody using the same factory ammo, and out of the box pistols, and see how it shakes out.
Be interesting. Maybe
I
there's a
still think
future
with
for that
the
idea.
I still think
Let's-
with the PRS having the same, everybody shooting the same exact rifle, not rifles that have been tricked out, and because really both of our games get into a little bit of a gear game. What you can afford, how talented you are in modifying what you have,
or how much money you have to pay somebody to do that.
or having a gunsmith. It gets into those things, and sometimes people know little tricks to make the gun faster, or lighter, or heavier, depending on which you would prefer. So I think that it'd be really cool to kind of take out that variable and put a stock gun with factory ammo all the same, and then have a match and see who actually
So
comes out on top.
So like for pistols, like we could use like those Canic things. If we knew somebody that like had a hookup with them, like maybe they could put on a match, and it's just like here they all are, and you just get your plastic box at the beginning of the day. And
No, I think the idea definitely has some merit.
It'd be fun, something different, right?
about to say we're talking about different matches.
Yeah, sure. It would be, I could tell you right now, it would be next to impossible to get a lot of the top guys to do it, just from like a contractual obligation standpoint. Like you're not going to get Max Michel or Rob Latham or Shane Cooley to shoot something other than their sponsored gun, more than likely. So that would probably be the biggest hurdle. And I can think of a bunch of potential, roadblocks, but that would probably be the biggest.
Yeah. It'd be fun though. I think it'd be cool to just completely level, I was a science major, so I think that way, taking the variables out, I think that would be really cool to take out the variables.
Well, and I mean, can you really think of somebody that, magically won a major competition because they all of a sudden had the whiz bang gear? Can you think of one instance?
No, and it's not that.
I mean,
But
like Regina doesn't win PRS matches, because she's got better gear. Like she's just awesome.
This is true.
Mhm.
She is awesome. It does play a factor a little bit, but I agree with you. And I think with the arrow and the Indian, I do think that it is not the arrow. I think it is the Indian. Um,
Well, the arrow's got to be straight.
Yep. And I'd say in PRS more so than USPSA, there are a couple of people that are very reliant on their arrows. And if you take their arrow away, for instance, if you take away a tripod, all of a sudden they can't shoot. And they're going to complain about it for about 72 hours straight, nonstop all weekend.
So I'm guessing some matches will place limitations on what gear you can utilize, a tripod being one of those items.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the tripod is the most controversial because it's very, well, number one, they're expensive. I mean, a good tripod is $1,000.
It's like two Canics.
Ball head is $400. So,
So there's your third Canic.
it's a lot of money to have a tripod. So when you're talking about getting people into the sport, the rifle's expensive, the ammo's expensive, then you add a tripod, and the tripod is a huge advantage if you have one.
Interesting.
Now, I've never gone to a match where I didn't have a tripod and I went up and said, "Hey, can I borrow your tripod?" and had somebody say no. I mean, people will loan them to you. But a lot of match directors feel very strongly that it's a crutch and you shouldn't need it to shoot as a rear support. People will use it as a rear support. And
a rear support, so you've got your standard like fixed solid barricade, and then you use the tripod to
support the buttstock.
to rest the buttstock on. Wow.
The tripod, well, no, the tripod leg, and you hold the leg and you hold the buttstock like it, but I mean, it's solid. Like it can take a pretty unstable position and make it like almost as solid as being like modified prone. I mean, it's pretty daggum solid.
Interesting. So what are the major divisions, if there are any, in PRS?
There's open.
Okay.
There's tactical, which is 308 or 223, and there is production.
And do all those divisions allow the use of like unlimited bags and limited tripods, or are there other restrictions?
Unless the stage or the match declares it, and that's up to the match director discretion. And so what he's talking about is not in 2020, but in 2019 at the finale, we got there and they said the day before, they said no tripods.
They said tripods must be deployed on the clock.
Oh, yeah, they did say you could use them, but they had to be deployed on the clock.
Which takes what, like 30 seconds to a minute?
Yep.
I mean, you could do it in probably 20, 25, but you got 90 seconds to deploy it, get in position, and we're moving positions. 90 seconds can be brisk depending on the stage. So it's just different to be able to do it that way. So the day before said it had to be deployed on the clock, and somebody that was staying in the house with us was not happy about it.
Well, so that would be, I would equate that kind of to, not practicing a certain skill in USPSA, right? So shooting off of a bad barricade or a horrible position is just another skill that you have to have, right? Another arrow in the quiver. That would kind of equate to a USPSA match where you have to shoot one-handed, say right-handed or left-handed.
I was about to say, it's like if you show up and they say, okay, shoot this weak-handed, and then everybody's mad. Well, I haven't practiced that. Well, I hate it. You knew it could have been an option.
Well, and that's kind of falls into the category you have to be ready for whatever the match director or the competition is going to throw at you. So if there's a 50-yard swinger, you have to be able to maybe not be confident that you're going to do it, but you prepared for that, to some degree. If it's one-handed shooting, you prepared for that. If it's some other kind of weird apparatus, maybe you can't duplicate it perfectly or exactly, but you can at least simulate it in some way. Put yourself in the same position.
Yeah.
So, and no amount of gear is going to make you better at that.
No,
that is true.
You got to be able to shoot with the basics, I think. I mean, I can shoot off of a tripod. I don't practice with it a whole lot because I don't use it very often, but I think that you have to be able to shoot with the gun and a bag. But
I was about to say, so I do love my gamer plate. I use the crap out of my gamer plate. But besides for that, everyone's like, oh, which 7 bags do you use? OG Game Changer all day long. and the rifle, and that's it. So we got a couple lives.
Let's hear them.
Randy wants to know if you dry fire with full grip strength and how long are your dry fire sessions?
So when I dry fire, yeah, it'll be full grip strength. I don't dry fire super frequently. I'm fortunate enough to be able to go to the range on a pretty regular basis. Now, that being said, if I'm changing divisions or if I'm changing gear, like I will invest a good amount of time to, change a reload method. Maybe I'm using shorter magazines as opposed to longer magazines. Maybe I'm using a slightly different holster. Maybe if I'm practicing for 3-gun, I'll, practice shotgun reloads, that kind of thing. So if I'm preparing for something specific, like I'll probably spend, half hour a day leading up to it. But in between matches, or if it's just, the off season, I'm probably not going to be dry firing a whole lot, if any, short of, dry firing at the TV. But if you're going to practice, do it for real. So don't half-ass it. Don't cheat yourself. Like actually pretend to aim at those targets. Don't fake aim. Actually pull the trigger like you're pulling the trigger in real life. Don't, fake pull the trigger. Like
If anybody
don't cheat
know,
yourself.
if anybody wants to know about dry firing, they need to hit up Mrs. Nils.
Yeah, if you want dry
Don't you
fire
agree
tips,
with me? I mean, I
just
don't,
go to Jessica Jonasson. Yeah, totally.
because she is, and I mean that in all seriousness, she is very good at dry fire and has put out a lot on Facebook about dry firing and how to dry fire and how you need to make it, you've got to grip the gun as if it was going to recoil and all that. So
Yeah,
she's
for
like
sure. She's definitely had her sights on like a particular skill level, and she doesn't feel like she's achieved that yet. So she's still working very hard on it, and she doesn't have as much time to dedicate towards dry fire right now, but she's also incorporating a little bit more live fire into her exercises as well. So still working hard.
Phil wants to know what kind of flashlight will you be using for 2021?
Is that Phil Strader?
Yep.
Tell him I'm gonna mill a little LED light into an SJC lead weight. Yeah, so Phil's making fun of the rules, obviously, that were implemented for USPSA, and that's one of the gamer ways to get around it, because it's kind of non-specific as far as what is a light, what is a modified light, and people are talking about like tungsten sleeve batteries and like all this crazy stuff. So I'm personally not sold on the fact that the light is as big an advantage as people think. And that's not to say I won't test it out and play with it, but the timer doesn't lie. So just because the gun might shoot softer doesn't mean you're going to do better.
Yeah, I'm still going to suck. So,
but it's fun to, and I guess this is the one part I don't mind. It's fun to let the gamers game.
Mm-hmm.
But back to my original point, it would also be nice if USPSA had talked with some of the gamers to figure out how it was going to be manipulated before it was a rule. So, my 2 cents.
I was about to say that's going to turn every division into whatever weight you want at the front of it, until they start having like production lights, running the flashlights through tech. No, I'm sorry. Surefire says this thing only weighs 8 ounces and it weighs 37. You can't use this light.
it'll be interesting. Gamer's gonna game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
What
quite
else you
frankly,
got,
that's part of the world of competition. Like, yes, your ability to shoot and compete in a particular match is one aspect of it, but your ability to solve problems and create unique solutions is another part. So,
well, it's
I
funny.
wouldn't make fun of the
I think
gamers,
that,
because obviously I'm one of them.
oh, I am too. I'm not. I don't mean that. I mean that in an endearing way. I think that every sport evolves off of innovation from people trying to. It's not that they're cheating; they're trying to get to the next level, right? I mean, if you look at sports in general, we're faster, jump higher, everything than they did 50 years ago in general. And so, records have just been obliterated, and it's because they push the next thing. I remember when the swim outfits. What do you call them? But the really skin tight like suits that
I
they
know what you're talking
started
about.
wearing came out, and they all said they were cheaters for wearing it. You know, the guys were in the Olympics, and they were like, "Those
Hmm.
are cheater suits or whatever," and now everybody's wearing those suits. So it's just funny to me how it evolves, and I think shooting's the same way. You know, a new in PRS, a new bag will come out, and everybody's, "Oh, that's a cheater bag." You know, a tripod comes out as a rear support. That's a cheater. You know,
Mhm.
putting a flashlight on the nose of your gun, that's cheating. You know, but then it evolves with the sport, so it's just
Right. It's
interesting.
a creative solution to solve a problem that, no one had thought of before.
Mhm.
So are you going to get mad at people? I mean, you can, but it's not going to do anything.
I just think it's funny to sit back and watch it evolve. But anyway, what are the lives you got?
So something happened, and I can't see any lives. The last one I see was 11 minutes ago, and I know that there was more than that, and I just cannot scroll down to see them because Facebook is
Weird.
awesome.
That happens sometimes.
Let's see if I can pull
There was
anything
one
up.
show I couldn't see any.
This is on Facebook.
Yep, on the live stream. Let me try and refresh it and see if I can get some.
77 comments. Jesus.
Everybody's talking smack.
I love it. Phil Strader, dumb rules have dumb consequences.
Yep.
Hmm.
That looks like about all of them, though. Oh, well, Randy wants to know what kind of jump in skill and classification did Jessica make from before dating Nils to after getting married?
Babe, what jump in classifier? What was the question again? What?
What jump in classification?
What jump in classification did you make when you made the jump from Nitzel to Jonasson? She hasn't. This is basically useless.
Man, time to ditch you.
I know, right? Turn me in for a younger model or something.
You haven't done anything for it.
Oh, well, she said before marrying. Oh, Jessica's rereading the question and it says before dating me.
Oh, before dating you to
Oh,
getting married. Gotcha.
yeah. So all of them, because she wasn't shooting before.
So she went from then a D class or unclassified to, and what she
Yeah. So
classed
you
at?
went from unclassified/D class to B class. Yeah. So she's B class pretty much across the board, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
You've been useful to her then.
I try.
You tried. That's
But
so good.
guys,
I think,
seriously, you do not want to, train your spouses. If you don't already know that, you should know that.
so. Did you train her, or did you get somebody else to train her?
She just whipped me. No, so she is very much self-taught, and she's really good at absorbing information on her own. I'm always there to answer questions if and when she has them, and at that point, I'm happy to provide any insight that I have. But for me to go out of my way and be like, "This is how you should do it," it's not always the right way. Even if I'm technically right, sometimes finding it out on your own is better.
Right. It's like, yeah. Spouses, we ask a lot of times when we have a husband and wife on, we ask about that. It's interesting to hear the stories, but pretty much across the board, they all say, don't teach your spouse.
Well, and that's not to say it can't work, but a lot of times, if it's somebody you're not emotionally invested in, you can get a little bit more. Like I think training classes are super valuable, and if in my last 19 years of shooting, or especially when I was younger, my biggest mistake or biggest regret is not taking a training class from somebody that actually knew what they were doing. Um, so it could definitely shortcut and circumvent the learning process to a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I
I
would
think
recommend
that's
it.
I think that's definitely a good set of advice there to go take a class. Take a
From
good
somebody that
class.
knows what they're doing.
Yes. Take a class from a reputable shooter that knows what they're doing. Don't just pick someone out of Google.
For sure. And if I was going to recommend anybody, obviously I don't do any instruction or personal training. I just don't really have the time, at least at the moment. But Steve Anderson does a really good job from the mental side of USPSA and like pistol sport shooting. Um, and he's good at communicating exactly what he's trying to convey to his students. So he's a good resource. And then Rob Latham is probably the guy I wish I had taken a class from, 15, 16 years ago, but didn't. And he would be up on that list as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think Greg is frozen. And it was about time to wrap it up to shout outs anyway. So since Greg can't do shout outs, I'm going to let you start with shout outs, Nils.
I'll shout out to Canic Arms and Canic USA. Love you guys, as well as Century Arms. And you can check out all my other sponsors on my social media and find out what you need to there.
Sweet. And I'm paring mine down this year. I'm kind of backing away a little bit, but I do want to shout out Impact Precision Shooting for an awesome action. I will get that into a gun shortly and go test it out. And just want to thank you for coming on for, 2 hours of your night.
Oh, it's only an
While
hour and a half.
Jessica's, oh, there you go. See, only an hour and a half. While Jessica's probably waiting for you to get off and feed her dinner.
All right. Well, thanks for having
Or
me on.
vice versa.
I really appreciate you and Greg having me on. So thank you.
Yep, it's a good time, and I'm sure we'll have you back on again. It's always good to have you on the show. Like I said, you've been on multiple times, and it's always great. So we will see everybody next week. Again, I can't remember who we have next week, but we'll see everybody on the show next week.
All right. Sounds
All
good.
right.
Have a good night, Jennifer.
Later.